Hello there, good people of the interwebs. If all goes well, we should be live now. And obviously I assume everything goes well, because what else am I to assume? I'm not really sure if John wants to talk to you guys already, because, well, it's not enough of you. Hi there, Paolo, by the way. And he's typing already. Oh, go on.
They may be all we get.
They may be all we get. Yeah, that may be true too. There is a thing, we're not really growing the channel, but then again, we're not doing any hard-hitting subject lately. Then again, it's good fun.
Hard-hitting subject?
I don't know.
I don't even know what that means.
Yes, I didn't say it meant anything. I'm just...
No, I'm just saying there. I don't know what it means.
Listen.
It doesn't compute.
John, if SJWs can get huge channels by speaking absolute nonsense, if there are international activist organizations that can become huge by doublespeak, then yeah, I guess that's where we should find our niche too.
No. I'd rather talk a little bit of what I actually believe to be true to a tiny audience than try and pretend to believe the bollocks those people spout.
Well, I don't believe what they say, but a little bit of double talk don't...
I said pretend to believe the bollocks they spout. I said.
I'm not even going to pretend I believe that.
Yeah, well, I can't say stuff without pretending to believe it, so...
All right, well...
Well, you are more than welcome.
Thank you. Hi there, Richard, by the way.
You are more than welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. I had to substitute for Richard the other day. He was very late to a Badger stream, so I had to predict technical difficulties for about 15 minutes.
Ah, right. And were there technical difficulties?
Always. In fact, they were particularly bad that day.
So, no, we're doing something better then, because lately we've been...
Oh, shh. Okay? Shh. Don't jinx it.
Well, for the time being, yeah.
Don't.
Yeah. And the stream almost went to shit. Well, that's not...
Yeah, no, the one I'm talking about.
Oh, right. That's quite annoying then.
No, I mean, literally, it'd be like streaming and then it just died. And then it'd be back and then they'd stream and then it just died. I think he did it about 4 times.
That's weird, though.
Not really.
Yeah, I mean, could it be that it's indeed... because of them, or is this YouTube trying to make sure that they have a bitch of a time?
Not YouTube.
No,
I might not like the evil empire, but no, it's not YouTube.
But how hard is it?
I think it was OBS crashing.
4 times?
Yes! When you've got a software bug and you haven't got time to stop and fix it because you're in the middle of a stream, it might keep going wrong.
Fair enough. Well, that's what you get when you download too much prom.
Too much?
Prom.
I cannot comment on Brian Martinez's internet use.
Me neither.
I'm sure his wife would have something to say about it.
I'm sure she does. Then again, who knows? Maybe she partakes.
Maybe she does.
It's possible. He wasn't downloading, he was uploading. Well, there you have it, Michael. That's a very interesting option as well. Hi there, Real Raven. Sorry I can't listen, guys. Might be checking the chat from time to time. Why can't you listen?
Because his computer's fucked. I did tell you this earlier.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that. Good luck with your PC, mate.
He showed me a screenshot of his discs. His
Of
system,
his
right?
dick?
Discs of his system, right?
Right.
And every drive was like 95+% deep, really red, no disk space. And I said, that's not a good idea, mate.
No, you gotta have space.
You gotta have space.
You gotta have space. Nice one, Ludicrous. Not gonna read it out, but a nice one.
I'll read it. Crikey. You got all shy all of a sudden.
And indeed, Nick's radio, nothing worse
No,
than an unsolicited
Michael
disc
Keller
pic.
uploading prawn. Not me. We talk about bloody Brian Martinez. Goodness, mate.
I wouldn't bust the people at YouTube, and the people at OBS are probably more focused on diversity of its staff versus. You know what? I don't think the people at OBS will have anything to do with anything because I don't think they actually care. So there is that. Agush, we are live.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, so let's check the chat a little bit. Hi, all you lovely people. Chat. Thank you for being on Skype earlier. Oh, that's not for me. I'm watching Formula E in Mexico at the same time. What's Formula E?
Electric cars.
Oh, right. Is it any good?
No idea. Paolo obviously thinks so.
Why is your wife laughing, Modwayne? Because she's looking at a very silly YouTube video.
Be grateful. Normally there's a loud sound of Big Bang Theory in the background.
Yeah, that's true too. So, yeah. So, considering that we've got most people that will come anyway, because let's be honest, they won't most likely not get much more crowded than this. John wanted to share with you.
Hang on. I'm just reading Richard Bayer's comment.
Oh, okay. Have you heard
Gypsy
about
Magic on YouTube? TikTok, she got kicked off of TikTok 5 times for speaking out on MRA issues. I'm guessing pro. Real Raven. Without any knowledge of her whatsoever, I'm guessing pro.
Yeah, I mean,
Because no one bad-mouthing MRAs gets kicked off anything.
No. It's completely. It's the same that you can't be racist towards white people. You can't be negative towards MRAs. You can't sexually abuse or domestically assault men. It's that line of thinking.
Speaking of which, Paolo posted a video of some South African doctor, I assume professor, and he was okay, but the arsehole said the overwhelming majority of sexual assaults are against women. No, they're fucking not, you lying piece of shit.
Well, they always like to not look at a certain aspect of sexual assault.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And there are still, if you look at the different ways of defining sexual assault, there are still ways men can only be the victim of sexual assault, but they can they can only be the perpetrator, but they can never be the victim.
Yeah, it's how you define it, it's how you measure it. Well, so anyway, I left a tough comment on the video to this effect.
Yeah. But I do notice that this is something that's happening a lot more lately. There's a lot of race baiting is the best word I can use, to be honest. because no matter who the victim is, as long as it's a white man, he can't be a victim, and as long as it's anything but white men, they automatically are victim. And if they are the ones that started it, well, then it's just because they're responding to being a victim. It's kind of funny because this is what intersectionality has brought us. Women can't be perpetrator in domestic violence because it's always responsive according to feminism, and the same intersectional nonsense goes on to nearly all other forms and groups of aggression towards white people, because in all fairness, it's always responsive. So the poor person doing it is not.
So you mean all those centuries of the Barbary slave trade, where they raped the populations of southern Europe?
Oh no, it wasn't just Southern Europe, mate. They came.
No, that doesn't matter that it wasn't just, but my statement was correct in that they did rape Southern Europe of its populations.
Yes.
That was just preemptive response to hundreds of years later the supremacy of the white man. Obviously.
Well, obviously. Well, I mean, Portugal, Spain, France. On both sides of France and Spain, by the way, there were large areas around
They got to southwest England as
well. Oh yeah. They got to the Netherlands. Yeah. So this is somewhat of an issue, one would say. Dot connector. If the elite want to bring down society further, the best place to start is with the group who builds society. There are people who think that this is the case, Dot Connector, and they may be correct in pointing this out. I'm not sure. But, yeah, the question is, how well can a society stand if you take down one of its pillars? So, yeah, there is that. Anywho. Hi there. I'm showing my face at Paulo Costa. I never wear a veil.
No, he said, we demand that John and Modwayne always show their faces. And I said, I am showing my face. Yeah. I never wear a veil.
I am also sharing my face with John.
Yeah,
but just not with you guys.
and he's not wearing a veil either. So we're always showing our faces.
Just not
to people in line of sight. We're just not transmitting them to the internet because we have compassion for people.
And in all fairness, both in the UK and in the Netherlands and in Germany and in France, people have actually been detained for what they said on the internet. So there is that. Anyway, John had
on that very, very subject, that is recent news coming from the UK, and it's actually good news.
Oh, sorry.
As I posted in the Discord just last night.
Mm-hmm.
It was a judge in the United Kingdom chastised the police. This is a summary from the BBC about incident. Not an incident. What's the word? The front page, a piece on the front page of the Times. Police have been urged to rewrite rules on hate crime after a judge likened a force to the Gestapo over its handling of a businessman who tweeted about transgender people, reports the Times. The paper says Mr. Justice Knowles warned that Britain was in danger of slipping into an Orwellian society after Harry Miller was visited by officers at work and told his tweets would be recorded as a non-crime hate incident.
Yeah. See, I don't understand how the police can be busy with non-crime. I mean, the whole idea of, someone didn't do something. No, someone did do something. No, someone didn't do something. No, they did. Well, what did they do? Well,
because
it wasn't a
words are
crime.
But mean words on the internet are more important than stabbings in real life.
Yeah, because it's easier to arrest a 65-year-old man or woman who is saying something negative about transgenders than to pick up kids who are actually out there killing it. And I say kids, but obviously they're a little bit older than 12. Most of them
No,
are...
kids. If they're under 18, they are minors and therefore kids.
Yeah, but I think it's... What was it? 15 to 25? Something like that. I can't remember. I read it some time ago. So, yeah. But okay, half of them are still kids, I guess.
Well, it's all priorities, you see. The police don't have endless resources, so they must prioritise the important crimes, like saying hurting feelings on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, our politicians tell us that trolling people on the internet is just such a civilizational threat, and it makes them feel unsafe. And we all know how important it is that these people not be made to feel unsafe. Because the people who are stabbed don't feel unsafe. So when they get stabbed, they didn't go through all the distress of having felt unsafe for so long before.
Yeah. And I have to agree, Michael, there's a good chance that this person might not be a judge for long.
Oh, he will be. He's a senior judge. Stop being so cynical. Why do you think it says police have been urged to rewrite the rules, as opposed to justice gets in hot bother?
Come on, let's be honest. The police have been urged to rewrite the rules, has happened a few times, and we're still where we are today, so...
Well, that's not what you said earlier.
What do you mean that's not what I said earlier?
The new video that I heard and no one else has.
Yeah, but that's because of the politicians.
Yeah, but the point is that government consists of several branches, one of which is the judiciary.
Well, there is this line of thought that the judiciary is becoming more and more political as well. It actually has a name, but I can't remember it now.
Well, here's the thing: the judiciary has always acted to keep the politicians within the law. In the United Kingdom, when an act of parliament is passed, it isn't law until a judge makes a judgment against it, and the judiciary are in a position to deny the legality of that legislation.
The problem is when judges go beyond that.
Yeah, I know.
And then you get into a critocracy. And this is something we've seen happening in more than a few Western world countries, including the UK and the Netherlands and America, where judges are telling politicians what they are and are not allowed to do.
Yeah.
Even though it's... Sorry?
What happened in Britain? The judges told Boris Johnson,
yeah,
you've got to do this.
Yeah.
And Boris Johnson wins the election, and now he's going to tell the judges where to put their instructions.
Well, fair enough, but first they make a whole point out of him. What was it called? That the week of when he started, when he became the first person in the English prorogation.
It wasn't the first prorogation. They were prorogued anyway for the party political conference season.
Yes,
he
I
merely
know.
added 4 days,
which was a huge problem, and the judges said he wasn't allowed to.
Yeah,
but he is allowed to.
But the jockeying for power is an eternal. Do you think it is new or different? No, this is what happened.
But it becomes a problem when the courts are going to become more powerful than the politicians.
No, but this is what I'm saying.
It's supposed to be the three branches.
No, this is what I'm saying. There's a dynamic. And the correction to the overstepping by the judiciary will now happen because of the election victory of Boris Johnson.
I hope so. But in all fairness, if we look at the United States, how many things did judges say that the president wasn't allowed to do, even though the judge has no right to rule on these things? But because they claim that they are, it now becomes how do you call it? There's a word for it. Jurisprudence.
Yeah, that's the law, yeah.
And because it becomes jurisprudence, it now suddenly is allowed to do. They're now allowed to do these things.
And do you know what politicians can do in response?
In America, not very much.
No. They can file legislation to overturn the judgment to change the law.
But they can't because... No, because this is... I mean, judges are now ruling on things they have absolutely no right to rule over.
Yeah, so then the politicians will pass laws to tell the judges they cannot do so.
But they already can't. But they already cannot do so, and they still do it.
So then you pass a law to tell them not to. Jeez.
Yeah,
how hard is it?
It's very hard. Trust me.
No, I mean to get through to you what I'm saying.
Yes, I could say the very same thing, my friend.
I mean, look, you're talking vaguely. What you're saying is judges are making rulings in areas they are not supposed to make rulings.
Yes.
Call that area Fred. So then the politicians pass a law saying judges have no influence in the area of Fred.
Yes.
Then the judges cannot.
Yeah,
because it would be illegal.
No, because then they will say that law is illegal.
No.
Yes, because
eventually issues get decided, if you know what I mean.
Eventually, yeah, sure. Years later, perhaps.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, no, not necessarily. Depends how egregious it is.
And that's why it's called a critarchy or a critocracy.
My point being is that you have competing forces which each has measures against the other.
But at this point in time, it would seem that the judicial branch is well in favor of left-wing rhetoric, and they are actually abusing their power to push.
And do you know why?
To push what they believe in. I assume because they believe in that they're doing the right thing.
Because of 20, 30 years of indoctrination from higher education, so that the lawyers leaving university are fully steeped in the ideology. Because I mentioned this ages ago when you talked about...
I'm not going to go into that now because... listen, you want to do this talk? We can do this talk. But that's by far the worst excuse.
It's not an excuse.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not. If your education system has a particular influence, that seeps into the thinking of huge influential strata of society, then that is where the problem lies. It's no good looking at individuals who come out of the system and saying, oh, well, you shouldn't have been indoctrinated. That's all I'm saying, is that
John,
the whole Yuri Bezmenov thing was about how you get into education so that you actually corrupt people at the root.
John, by that very same argument, you cannot blame Muslim terrorists for killing people.
It didn't say that. I didn't say that.
But it's the same argument.
I am not an all or nothinger like you. I believe
Fair enough, John,
in
but
complexity.
but that's what you're saying.
It's not.
Yes, you're saying they can't help themselves because they got indoctrinated.
No, I'm saying you cannot expect them to be immune. That you have to fix
The question
the wider problem,
they don't have to be
or
immune.
else it will simply reappear. If you keep producing something, cleaning it up, then the new thing, then it'll just keep coming afresh. You have to stop the production of more.
Yes, well, it's not just about stopping the production of more. You have to stop.
I didn't say it was just. I didn't say just.
I would
I said also. The word also is what I said.
Yes, I would so much like it if I could actually finish a sentence, though. Because there is more to it. And we have to start somewhere. And we can't start at the schools because the schools are being protected by the politicians and the judges. So we have to start the one place where the average person can still have an influence. And that's in the politics. So we have to start in the politics.
No, we have to start in the education.
We don't have
It
the
doesn't
influence
matter.
there.
You start everywhere. You start everywhere. You don't say we can start here and we will start there.
How can you influence the educational system? How can you influence the educational system?
You're hypothesizing. I'm not going to enter hypotheses.
No, I'm actually asking a very specific question. Because what can the average person do about schools? The only thing they can do is say, my kid won't go to this school. Okay, fair enough. So we go to another one.
What can the average person do about anything?
Well, but that's the thing about politicians. We can do something because we can vote them in and we can vote them out. And yeah, you can try to become a teacher, Michael Keller. Fair enough. But I don't think 1 or 2 teachers will make that big of a difference.
No, the problem is it is a massive long-term societal infection that we have.
But so many youth. I mean, we've got a situation now where the average kid is about as likely to be left-wing as it is about to be, well, that's not left-wing and right-wing, that's bullshit. It's about as much chance that they are progressive and conservative. This is something we haven't had for actually since the Second World War.
Sorry, I'm missing your point.
At this point in time, kids are as much likely to be conservative as they are progressive.
Okay, that isn't what you said, but okay, yeah.
And this is relatively new because kids on average used to be progressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
because progressivism was the oppositional position.
Yeah, that was the oppositional position. And now conservatism is
the oppositional position,
yeah.
Because the whole elite, as per my point, are steeped in the progressive mentality.
Yeah.
Even the conservatives in the United Kingdom. I listened to someone like Mayor Toosey, and he's complaining already about all the stupid policies the new conservative government is trying to push through, because they are not conservative policies. They are progressive policies, and that's what he's upset at.
Fair enough. And
how does a conservative party become progressive?
Well, I mean, I've said this many times in the past as well. There are hardly any parties in Europe that aren't left-wing.
Yeah.
Or left, because you can't really call it left-wing anymore.
No. That's why I say progressive. Because it's a term for an attitude rather than a traditional political position. I mean, in fact, I had this light bulb moment yesterday, which comes to exactly this point. You see, the fundamental problem we have with politics is this dominant force we call progressive isn't left wing, but it says it's left wing, and everyone treats it as if it's left wing, simply because they say they're left wing, even though they are racist, they are sexist, and everything that has traditionally been associated, incorrectly, I might add, with the right.
The whole idea of left and right is...
No, but my point is they are elitists. They hate the working class. So quite how they're supposed to be left wing, I have no idea. They are anti-egalitarian. They are, as I say, they're racist, they're sexist, they have proposed the most appalling discriminatory policies. They are social bullies. They are authoritarian, exactly, Richard.
Yeah.
But everyone calls them left, but they're not left. There's nothing genuinely progressive about them in terms of actually improving society. They just are moving society away from where it is now. So you could say, as long as progression doesn't have a direction, then they are progressive.
Yeah.
But then we get down to what words mean. But by using words with positive connotations, they mask deeply. What's the word? Things that about hate humanity. Just look at your favourite subject, the Extinction Rebellion lot, who want to kill off humanity. There's nothing more antithetical to humanity than people who want us all to die.
Yeah, I never understand how people can say that they want zero carbon emissions. This is literally impossible.
No, but these people are ideological, not rational. In fact, their ideology pushes irrationality as a good and rationality and reason as a bad. Because it's the tool of the oppressive white man.
It's better to be morally correct than factually correct, AOC
But they
said.
aren't even morally correct. That's
no, they're neither. They are neither, that is true. But the idea that you can be morally correct, is there's something seriously wrong with people.
Well, you see, okay, and here we can segue into what I wanted to talk about.
Yep, go on then.
No, because, right, okay. As humans, we naturally think in the scale of our evolutionary past. It's generally reckoned that any of us can only really know 200 people personally, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
And when we think in those scales. Now, if we're talking about the left, shall we call them?
By lack of better word.
Yeah. No, but at any point, okay, they're all about the cooperation, right? That thing you read out, was it Wednesday? That woman who ended up causing Extinction Rebellion. And it was all about cooperation, non-hierarchical.
Yeah, that was Wednesday.
And it all works at a personal level. You can work like that in small... When you know everybody knows you, you have a personal connection, you have personal knowledge of each other, that can be done to an extent. It's not perfect, but it is at least conceivable. The problem is, as soon as you get much bigger than that, you cannot know all these people. So they stop being individuals. They're not Fred and George and May and Mildred and Betty. They are those people from over there. And the minute they are those people over there, they stop being individuals, but you've now got a group. And the group is the individual.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now, I would argue that this is true of all politics.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been true. We had class, we had, it's always, because to think in terms of our human scale of number of things, you scale it to people in that village, people in that county, and they stop being human, Richard, exactly. And this is the fundamental problem. So when they say cooperate, if you're with the people you're with, you can conceive of this idea of cooperation, but it doesn't scale because you're no longer dealing with individuals. And the bigger a group is, the more diverse that group is in any metric you want to measure, right? So, as I keep saying, there's no such thing as a national interest. There are groups in a country, which might be geographical, they might be social, they might be ethnic, or it might be religious, who have sometimes, as happened with the recent case of Israel Folau and the gay people, fundamentally opposite interests. His interest is, his religion says gay people will go to hell. Not that he wants it, not that he thinks it's a good idea, but merely a statement of that's what the scripture says. And the other people say, oh, you can't say that, you'll offend the gays. And it's like, well, okay, so you now can see two groups of people, the observant Christians and the gay people, or the observant Muslims and the gay people, who have diametrically opposing positions. So you can't say society has an interest. It has many interests, some of which conflict. So then how can you cooperate when you can't even... I'll just go back a sec. So then you consider an individual. We are all part of different groups. And so we might even have conflicts to an extent within our own interests. Then how on earth can you pick arbitrary groups to which we belong and then say, right, that their interest is that?
Yeah.
But this is exactly what the bloody identitarians do.
True.
And which is why they're constantly telling us that if we are white, we must be racist. Why? Because they cannot cope with the fact that you know nothing about people within a group.
Yeah.
So the only way they can determine how to treat a group, if you think people in terms of groups, is to foist beliefs and characteristics upon them, no matter how unrealistic and untrue. It's, and it's like, but to think this is a problem of the left or these regressives or whoever is that's where the error is, because it's always been true of everybody. It's what we do. We can't help it. Our brains aren't wired to cope with millions of people we don't know, cannot comprehend. So to think about them at all, we have to reduce them to groups, and we attribute qualities to the group, and then those qualities get transferred to the individual.
Yeah. But it's easier to look at things... No, it's not easier. It seems easier if you look at things as a group thing.
Yeah. No, it's much easier to think that way.
Yeah.
Because you're making it simpler. And simpler things are easy to think about. They just also happen to be less true. To the point of not being at all true.
Yeah. And then you get people who are no longer interested in the rest of society. Now, it's okay if people are no longer interested in the rest of society in itself. Now, I'm not really saying it's okay because it's not. But not being interested in society is not the same as actively going against it. And it would seem that our left-wing brothers in arms and sisters are actively going against their own society. Because
they don't associate themselves with it.
No, they actually disassociate from it because they consider it a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. I concur 100%.
And this is kind of a problem. And because of this problem, we see all sorts of behavior that is damaging.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's there's a term for it. Well, actually, not just a term. There is a psychological.
Stupidity.
Well, yeah, that too. There's a psychological explanation, not explanation. Well, term is good. Just like gender dysphoria and schizophrenia, there is this thing called oikophobia, where people will actually turn against their own culture because. Well, there is no real because. That's the worst part. It doesn't make sense. And we're not talking about people having, like, yeah, you know what, we could have done this better, we could have done that better. No, it's actually turning against it, as in nothing is good. Oh, sorry.
Well, I have this view. You see, people will say things like they act against their self-interest, or they're acting irrationally. Well, my attitude is actually, no, what it means is you've not looked at it properly. Because people will act in what they perceive to be their own interest. It just might be in a way you haven't considered about them.
Yeah.
And so, and all behaviour has roots in our evolution. You know, we're animals. Animal behaviour is evolutionary rooted. I'm not saying there is no social influence. Of course there is. But underlying socially influenced behaviour is our evolutionary nature. It's just that as very complex creatures with complex thoughts and needs and whatever, sometimes things that to an outside observer seem irrational or less important become more rational or more important to the individual. And then you add the mass drug use and other, you know, when I say drug use, I don't just mean illegal drugs. I just mean everything from the foods we ingest and the effects of them through to, you know, even environmental effects of the chemicals we use in modern agriculture. It's hardly surprising people act crazy when we're doing so much to the environment.
Yeah, there is something, and people are being, how do you call it? You're made to believe certain things. They are Project Fear is not just something that happened at the Brexit, so to speak.
Oh no, it's perpetual.
And I mean, if we look at the whole environmental bullshit at the moment, yeah, that too is Project Fear. But Yeah.
Well, it's oh shit! I had a thought.
Sleep
and then
well,
it's
Michael.
gone. Okay, so I had this thought. Now, 1848, an interesting year. Two entirely separate oppression narratives were delivered in the same year. In Europe, in London, though in German, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels unveiled the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah.
Across the ocean, in Seneca Falls, somewhere in the United States, the feminists, not that they call themselves feminists probably, published their Declaration of Sentiments. Both are based on a threat narrative. So these are old, 170 years each. Now, here's the thing. So when I don't really want to mention the feminist one. I mention it simply because it was the fact that it came out independently in the same year shows the non-uniqueness of the Marxist one. But if you look at the Marxist one, for the longest time, there were working people. We were industrial societies, some of us, right? Okay. So there were lots of working people who weren't paid very much, who lived in terrible conditions, and whatever you think of Marxism, there was a class it could be said to advocate for. Now, as time has progressed, and particularly even in my lifetime in the United Kingdom, for instance, and I say the United Kingdom purely from the limits of my knowledge, right? We've had post-industrialization and massively improving living standards.
Yeah.
Okay. So, essentially, this working class isn't this working class anymore. Which leaves a kind of problem. 100% sure, Richard. And not they, me. It's my statement that they are independent. As I say, the wealthy women of America and the downtrodden workers of Europe had nothing to do with each other at that point. Feminism wasn't even associated with left-wing socialist politics.
They didn't care about the working class anything.
No.
Neither man nor women.
No, but I'm saying, but the feminists had nothing to do with socialist politics, and socialist politics were still a loggerheads with feminism well into the 20th century. But anyway, so the point is, there's always been, we know from like Orwell in his writings back in the 1920s, that there's always been the intellectual element. In fact, Marx, as you point out, he was an intellectual. He wasn't a working person. He was an intellectual. So there's always been the intellectual group leading the advocacy for the working class, as opposed to the working class actually having genuine existential struggles, like having a job and enough to eat and somewhere to live and all that. Okay. But when it comes to the ideology, it was always the middle class. But there was a working class. There was a mass labour movement. Even in my lifetime, back in the night, but towards the beginning of the 1980s, there was a mass labour movement. But it's gone. To leave just a growing middle class movement, which creates a problem for them. because their whole narrative is based on oppression. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you do if your narrative is based on oppression and the oppressed people aren't actually that bothered? And if you remember the whole dynamic from economic to cultural Marxism was to replace the oppression of the working class with the oppression of all these other groups by arbitrary characteristic.
Mm-hmm.
And this, for the advocate, has one special benefit. It enables the most privileged, wealthy people to claim victimhood.
Yes.
Such as the woman in the Question Time studio suggesting that poor Princess Meghan Markle was oppressed.
Yeah.
You know, as someone put it recently, I think it was Janice Fiamengo, the idea that a princess is the person oppressed just takes feminism to a whole new level.
Yep.
And so, over time, that is, if you like, the appeal of the victim narrative, that it can then be adopted by those leading the advocacy when they had no claim to it before. They could claim to be for those other people, but deep down they know they've got no legitimacy. However, if those other people still existed, they could pretend to speak for them. Mm-hmm. Just as they now pretend to speak for the black community and other racial groups, for women and all these other groups. They just say, hey, we're the spokesmen for these people.
Uh-huh. And it was, yeah. And the worst part is that as soon as these people say, no, we want to speak for ourselves, they demonize those people. Well, no, you're an Oreo. You're white on the inside. Oh, you're only black on the outside. Yes. Oh, you don't care about your people. We care about your people.
Yeah, with worse racism against racial people, sexism against women, and so forth.
Yep.
Than ever they can find.
Yeah.
Because Toxic Threads asked me, she said, why won't socialism die? And the question, and we have to look at what's going on, what the dynamic is. And amongst that, you have to look who's benefiting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people whose entire academic careers built on it, for a start. The people who are now immersed in the victimhood industries, who have actively sought to suppress attempts to actually understand and deal with real problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. The progressive twist themselves in verbal pretzels just to call black people there with their own opinions uppity. No, they actually call them racist and white supremacist. Mm-hmm.
Well, remember, whiteness is not about your skin colour. Which then makes me wonder, so why is it white?
Yeah, but they can't define white.
No, that's what I mean. It's like,
I mean, can you remember that not too long ago there were these people killed at a Jewish bodega in, what was it, Jersey?
Yeah, in America, yeah.
Yeah, and they were killed by white supremacists.
Who were black.
Who were black Israel... Israel Hebrews? I forgot.
Well, who cares?
It's a funny name. It's a black supremacy group, though. I mean, it's
they're the same people, the Covington kids got into trouble again.
Yeah. The black Hebrew Israelites. Black Hebrew Israelites. That's one. And it's kind of funny because even the Jewish, they are Jewish. No, the Jewish race baiting organization called SPLC.
No, the ADL's a Jewish one.
The SPLC too.
No, it's not that. That's not a Jewish one. It's the ADL that's a Jewish one.
I thought the SPLC was one too, but okay, never mind. According to the SPLC, there are about 950 supremacy groups in America. And obviously, white supremacy groups are the biggest problem. There are about 450 of those. But I would say, if there's about 900 to 950 supremacy groups in America, and there's only 450 white ones, that's either half or less than half.
Well, it's also about numbers.
Yeah, the biggest one of the white supremacy groups is the KKK. It's about 5,000 to 8,000 members strong. Yeah, I'm sorry, but those are not numbers that fear me.
No.
I mean, even if I would say, okay, you know what? I'm going to say the KKK is 8,000 people strong. It's not, it's 5 to 8,000, so it could be anything between 8,000. It's the biggest, but I'm going to pretend that all of the other groups are equally big. And because I'm a lazy calculator, I'm going to say there's 500 white supremacy groups. That would still be about, 500 times 8,000. So that's about 4 million. That's a little more than 1% of the American population.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all pretending this is a huge issue. Funny enough, there are also, and I have to be honest, because it's 1% of the American population, but maybe I shouldn't say all of America. Maybe I should just say white America. Fair enough. How much of America is white? It's a little
65%.
Yeah, so let's say 60, because again, I'm a lazy calculator. It's easier to calculate 60% out of 300 million. Not a lot easier, but fair enough. So that's about 180 million people. So 4 million out of 180 million people is still... about 2%, between 2 and 3%. Funny enough, if we do the same calculations for black groups, and obviously, I mean, not all other supremacy groups are black supremacy groups. So let's say a third of the other ones are black supremacy. So we have 450 white supremacy. So 100 and let's say 110. So it's a little less than a third. 110 other supremacy groups are black supremacy. Fair enough. We're going to say they're roughly the same size. So 100 times 8,000 would make it 800,000. Yeah.
This is why God invented spreadsheets.
True, fair enough. I'm all doing this by heart, so if I make mistakes, fair enough. So let's say 8,000. We're going to call it 8,000. 800,000. 800,000.
Why don't you just come to your conclusion? Just say there's more of this or less of
that. No. So 800,000 out of 13% of America.
Sorry, folks.
You're not making it easier for me by interrupting. Come on.
I know, but if it's a quick calculation, fine. But you're going on and on and on. And to be quite honest, there's a point that can be summarised. What is the point? The point is, there are so many white supremacists that you can give a very generous upper estimate of, and there is, compared to that, how many black supremacists? More or less? More or fewer?
So there's let's say 45 million black people in America, roughly. And 800,000 is... I'm doing this all by heart, so that's still about 2%. So
okay,
it's roughly the same percentage-wise.
No, yeah, but part of the problem with these things is you can compare things in different ways. You see, I would argue that the absolute numbers matter more in this instance.
Well, in the absolute numbers, there are probably more white supremacist organizations than black supremacists.
No, people, you were calculating people.
Then there are also more white supremacist people than there are black supremacist people. But the thing is, they're talking about organized. Most of the black supremacy thing isn't even organized. You can't calculate for that.
Well, no, people do what they always do. They just pull shit out their arse.
Maybe, but
you've got to remember, and I'm being totally serious here, not. The reason everyone fears white supremacists is because we're modern and industrial, so when we go out to kill people, we do it properly. Whereas the black people use machetes.
Well, the only reason why they use machetes is because they're not allowed to use guns.
No, not in America. I'm thinking of the bloody of the Hutus, who genocided other black people, because that was clearly white supremacy.
Yeah. That was white supremacy as well.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. It's like they'll say, oh, well, we've got the Nazis and they set out to kill all the Jews. And the Hutus set out to kill all the Tutsis. It's not unique.
No.
The only difference is one did it with camps and railways and organisation because they were German. And the other with machetes.
Well, I mean, I think the Turkish and Armenian question, that was done by crucifying people. Slightly over a million people.
The Roman method. Is that cultural appropriation? That's what I'd like to know.
I'm not quite sure.
After all, the recent Swedish airline commercial is insistent that if somebody did something before, you're not allowed to do it.
Yeah. I'm going to make a response video to that one, to be honest. Because that is so fucking offensive. It really is.
No, but do you know what offends me, right? Okay. Because I like my cycling.
Okay.
Okay. The Germans invented the bicycle.
Did they?
Apparently.
Okay.
However, the modern bicycle is utterly dependent on the gear system. And I know the name of the man who invented that because his name is still that of the major producer of gears, Campagnola, and he was an Italian.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, the Germans started off inventing the bicycle, but it was nigh on useless until Campagnola turned it into something that could cope with variations of terrain.
Well, there is that.
No, but it just destroys the whole narrative. Oh, the Germans first invented the bicycle, so they invented the bicycle. No, they didn't invent the modern bicycle. They invented something you sat on that had wheels.
Well, I really like the fact that they think that, what was it again? That Greeks invented democracy. And I'm like, yeah, no, not really. But the Vikings actually had more democracy than the Greeks had.
Yeah.
And one could say that the Magna Carta, which was one of the most important things in modern Western society, something that affects every modern Western country, one could actually argue the whole idea of the Magna Carta was because of the Germans, hear me, the Norse coming to England. Because the idea of kings being mere people wasn't normal on the British Isles. That's something that came with the Vikings.
No, I disagree.
I know you disagree, but it's still true.
I'll tell you why I disagree.
Okay.
Prior to the Vikings, we had the Saxons.
Yes.
And the Saxon leader was elected.
Yes. And this was in what year?
Before the Vikings.
What year?
I have no idea.
Because it wasn't before the Vikings. It was before the Vikings came to conquer England. But they were living there for a long time. The Danes were living there for quite a while as well.
No, I'm talking about the Saxon culture, not the Viking culture.
But the Saxon culture and the Viking culture weren't that far apart.
Okay, maybe. But it was there from Saxony, which is Jutland, just south of Denmark, not in Denmark. So yes, geographically the same. But my point is, the peoples of the Saxony and the Angles and the Jutes, which is also Jutland, which is modern Denmark.
Yeah.
But not the Vikings.
No, but the Saxon culture, yeah, and sorry, the Saxon culture isn't far from the other Norse cultures because the Anglo-Saxons had a lot of Norse influences.
Yeah, and vice versa, no doubt, if they were neighbours.
Oh yeah, they had a lot of influences, and I think. I'm not 100% sure, so people can, how do you call it? Correct me if I'm wrong. But I thought the Saxons came to the British Isles around 950.
No, 450.
450?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's my bad then.
Yes, the Anglo-Saxons were here, then we had the Vikings.
Okay. Yeah, the Vikings came around 1000. Well, that's not really true because
no, they came at 800.
Yeah. But yeah, no, the whole idea of kings and leaders not being more than the whole idea that the royalty isn't something divinely given is something that was quite common amongst the Germanic tribes. The Vikings obviously being one of them, but yeah, the Saxons obviously being one of them too. So the Magna Carta was a result of that.
Well, very, very indirectly, considering that the Magna Carta was put forward by the barons, so to call,
No, you're correct. It's
regional forces of Norman England and were of mostly Norman descent.
No, you're correct. It is indirectly. But that's the whole thing. Our whole society, especially in Europe, but this is worldwide, we've constantly been influencing one another. To say that democracy comes from the Greeks is not recognizing everything that happened since.
Yeah,
to say that the bicycle was invented by, I think it was a Frenchman, but okay, let's say a German.
The Germans.
Yeah, fair enough. It's completely.
I looked it up, and there is evidence.
Okay, yeah. And to say that the bicycle was invented by the Germans, therefore all bicycles are German inventions, kind of completely ignores all the things that have changed in the bicycle.
Yeah.
There's so many other differences like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, exactly. Everything's an evolution, and ideas influence each other.
Mm-hmm. Funny enough, if we are to say, okay, so what did Scandinavian countries bring to the world? Well, the safety belt in the car. That's a Volvo invention.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very important. Saved quite a few lives. And it's recent. So yeah.
And causes a considerable amount of smugness from Volvo owners.
Why? I mean,
Because smug people buy Volvos, that's why.
yeah, I used to have Volvo, but every car
Yeah.
every car has safety belts.
No. I'm talking about Volvo cause a great deal of smugness amongst Volvo owners.
Oh, isn't that more of a Prius thing?
Well, everything's a feedback loop. All I'm saying.
Okay.
It's like a smug person buys a Volvo, which makes them even more smug. Thus, Volvo caused a lot of smugness amongst Volvo owners.
I've actually, I used to drive Volvo actually.
Yeah, you said.
I know my favorite cars have always been Volvos. That's not true. There's one car that I liked very much that wasn't a Volvo, and my current car is pretty good and isn't a Volvo either. I used to have an Opel Frontera. That was a good car as well. But if I could afford it, I would get myself an XC90 Volvo.
Very nice, I think.
Oh yeah,
Don't
no.
care. It's a car, don't care. A car should work, it should be reliable, it should get you from A to B.
Yeah,
Preferably protect it from the elements.
yeah. Well, I could share with you what it looks like, but then again, I can understand why people would say, who cares?
Well, no, it's just everyone has their own interest.
True
If
that.
your interest is cars and you drive a lot, fine.
Well,
I drive
well,
very little.
One moment, John. You have to take over for a moment. I'm AFK for a sec, yeah?
Oh, crap.
I'll be right back.
That is true, Richard. The more stupidity you get. It's also the fundamental problem of improved health. The more we keep people alive and surviving into adulthood and reproducing, the weaker the genome gets, because it's not perpetually weeding out mild mutations that cause problems. And therefore, we are not, on average, anywhere near as vital specimen as we were in prehistoric times. This is not an advocacy for eugenics, merely an observation of fact that the consequence of increased survival is genetic weakening. Sorry, ludicrous. That's funny. The Opel Frontier was a rebadged Isuzu. That's nice, Paolo.
Opa.
So, I'm glad you're back. I had nothing to say.
So, I'm back. First off, Paolo, before I left, the Opel Frontera was a rebadged Isuzu. You are correct. It was. I still like it.
I don't even know what that means.
Isuzu is it's a brand, isn't it?
By?
I think it's a Japanese brand.
Oh, okay.
The
Then
brand-
no wonder the Opel Frontera wasn't as bad as other Vauxhall.
Well, that's probably it. Yes, because the how do you call it? The one that came after, predecessor.
I have no idea.
No, anyway, the one that came after the Opel Frontera was designed by Opel, and it was crap. It really was crap. So yeah, there is that, and all compact Volvos. What? All compact Volvos are essentially descendant from the DAF car brand, and that is correct too. But DAF unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. Then again, the world still owes a great thank you to DAF, especially Americans, because DAF gave them automatic transmission.
all this talk about who invented what first presupposes the improbability of anyone else coming up with the same idea, because we actually know that there are many instances of dual invention of very similar things.
Yeah, but still,
I'm just saying.
it's
I was
how
attacking their premise, not your point.
it's kind of what Columbus tried to explain to people when people said, "Well, yeah, but it's easy to do that." Yeah, okay, here's an egg, make it stand. And then people try to balance it, and eventually it works. And then he does it. He grabs the egg and he slams it bottom end into the table, which makes the shell break. Hey, let's go. The egg is standing. Yeah, but that is easy. Yeah, once you know how it's done, everything else is easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, there are plenty of examples of... No, actually, I don't think the automatic transmission didn't have a competitor.
No.
That one wasn't...
I didn't say that.
No. But there are, I mean, if, for example, the light bulb had several people working on it, I think.
Well,
Telephone too.
Edison is credited with the light bulb when all he did was use a tungsten element.
Yeah.
Was it Phillips or somebody who actually invented the vacuum and everything, and he just did the...
I can't remember.
Sorry. So, Richard Bayer says, all you have to do is sell the idea that sanitation and vaccination are either things of the wealthy elite class. No. Evil white males, or go against the will of the deity. Can I just suggest that we set 4chan to work and get the feminists they'll adopt in no time? The rejection of sanitation, I mean.
Well, there's a good chance of that. They'll, if you can explain to them why sanitation is a sign of the patriarchy, they'll be against it.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to make sense. I mean, the feminists, obviously, it doesn't have to make sense. The forerunner of the automatic transmission was the fourth planetary transmission developed for the Model T. That could be true. I don't know.
Again, a lot of it comes down to how you define stuff. You know.
That is true. I'm sorry, I'm still a little bit short of breath and everything.
That's all right.
No, it's not. It's been going on for weeks.
No,
now.
I don't mean it's fine that you're not well. I mean, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's, you know, we're understanding.
Yeah, that's
and hi, anxious Aussie. Sorry.
Hi there, anxious. Why are you late again? You're always late lately.
Well, it's Sunday morning. I mean, you know, things to do, kids to care for.
Right. Oh, all right then.
Country to rebuild after it's been burnt down, you know, that sort of thing.
No. The problem now isn't the fires, it's the floods. Countries being flooded away.
What, in Australia?
Yeah.
Hey, here too.
Yeah.
We're having our second storm.
But
we had a storm, Kiara, last weekend, and now we've got another storm, Dennis, this weekend.
Yeah. We had Kiara too. But, in all fairness, the difference between our storms and their storms is that they didn't tell us that it would be April before it will start raining again. They did say that in Australia, if I'm remembering this right.
Yeah, but to be fair, it is our winter and their summer. So, technically, there is a difference there.
Yeah, technically they're still wrong, you wanted to say.
No, I didn't mean that. No. Technically, we expect shitty weather at this time of year because it's winter.
Yes.
Whereas it's their summer. They have blue skies and sunlight and heat in Australia, by all accounts.
Well, and rain. Lots of rain.
But only in April.
Well, apparently not.
No,
they have it
only
now.
in April,
Haida does.
Normally.
No, I don't think only in April normally. I listen, this is again the climate stupidity that they keep pushing. Oh no, it'll not rain again. Oh no, it'll not rain again.
No, I didn't think it was the environmentalists who said it wouldn't rain. I thought it was the meteorologists who said it wouldn't rain.
You think
not the same people?
You really think that there's a big difference between those?
Yeah, well, because you keep flip-flopping between this group and that group. The group who said it wasn't going to rain were the meteorologists, who are not synonymous and identical to the environmentalists.
Well, let me put it like this. According to what I've seen, and I've looked into this a little bit, nearly all big fires in Australia ended with floods.
Okay.
Now, Daz and Anxious are here, so they can tell you whether I was right or wrong. But as far as I remember...
I can even imagine why.
Well, yeah, me too. Lots of dirt in the air makes it
No,
easy.
not just that. Not just that. But
Okay.
also think of the... Because you showed... Do you remember you showed that map?
Yeah.
And the prevailing winds and everything, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you have a sudden excess of heat on land, you will change the airflow.
Yeah.
So you will bring the water vapor-laden air in from the ocean when it would have normally not come in.
Well...
No, if you think about it, you've got
Yeah.
much more rapidly rising air causing greater wind currents, and all of a sudden that sea air, which doesn't normally come into that part of the country, would be pulled in.
I think there's more to it, but I understand what you say. I'm not quite sure because I haven't really looked into it as much. But
Well, no, I've just made that up out of my head, but it just seems to make sense.
I think it's slightly different than that, but you could be right. But what I find funny is that, well, as I said, as far as I can remember, what I've read is that nearly all major forest fires had a lot of water falling after it. And I'm like, this is not news. I mean, it might be news for the people listening here, but this is not news for people who keep track of this shit. So I'm simply, I can't understand how they then say, well, we have to wait till April till it starts raining, when history shows us this is not the case.
Yeah, well, you've got to understand the first casualty of social justice is history.
Yeah, well, the truths is usually the first casualty. So.
No, but historical truth even more. Specifically.
Fair enough.
Given that 99% of their dogma is based on historical inaccuracy, it is essential to them that history is the casualty of social justice.
Daz, in 47, the rain... No, 74, the rain came first. Didn't the rain came after it as well, though? I thought I read that. I could be wrong.
Exactly, Richard. Lots of hot air.
Yeah. It's almost like that South Park episode. Ooh, we've got a smog storm coming. So, yeah.
Yeah, well.
But yeah.
Yes.
The environmentalists...
Beware the bullshitting about Australia. We've actually got Australians in the audience, so...
No, I like Australians. Daz
I didn't say you didn't.
Yeah.
I just said beware the bullshitting about Australia. We've got Australians in the audience.
So, yeah, there is that.
Well, you see that, and that's the irony, because you see, if you get fire and it rains quickly straight after, the fire creates very fertile ground.
Yes. And a lot of plants, how do you germinate? Not germinate. I forgot the word.
Yeah, germinate.
Germinate after a fire. A lot of seeds,
Yeah.
plant seeds,
Yeah.
and
But
fires.
even the ones that don't normally, there'll be seeds. You've got nutritional soil.
Yeah, because
And
not all
rain.
seeds will be burnt.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously, and this is something a lot of people also don't understand. But ashes are not per se a negative thing when it comes to growing stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But as I say, don't expect knowledge or sense to come out of these activists.
Yeah, there is that. There is that. I mean, the rain in 74 created more vegetation to burn. Well, yeah, that too. But, well, I mean, if you don't take away the how do you call it, plant life and whatnot, then yeah, sure, you're going to have a lot of fire. I mean, there's 3 things necessary for a fire: oxygen, temperature, and fuel. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
the triangle of fire.
The triangle of fire. You see, you can learn things on this channel.
No, I learnt it at the Fire and Rescue Service.
Hey, you did, but they didn't.
The triangle of fire. They were kind of expert in the subject.
Yeah, well.
One thing firefighters know a lot about, it's fire.
You'd expect them to.
Yeah, well.
But.
No, well, this is not when social justice gets to work.
True.
When social justice gets to work, it's, but how does it feel? Or what colour is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a bit of a crib from Douglas Adams, that last one.
Well, that's also about the car, isn't it? What car? Yeah. When you ask a woman what car her husband drives, a red one.
Yeah. That's not just women. That's me. I drive a red car. What kind of car do I drive? A red one. Red's the most important thing about my car.
Right. What kind of car do you drive? Well, it's got 4 wheels.
A front to back, and it works. What more do I want? And it's got aircon. That was very important.
I can appreciate that, to be honest. For the longest time I didn't really want it, but now I can't do without it. Anywho. So yeah, there is that. Anyone got anything interesting to say still? Well, anything. John, you got anything interesting to say?
Yeah, well, I would just like to point out in advance, anyone who saw the Discord post, that Modwayne claimed this would be an interesting discussion, and I thought he was being a little optimistic.
Well, we've been all over the place, but I can't really remember that we were on topic.
No, you said interesting. Okay, you said interesting. I didn't say on topic. Did I mention topic? No.
Okay, fair enough.
We're never on topic. That
no, usually we are on topic for a while.
You are on topic. That is not my mission. My mission is to be amusing. Sorry, I failed tonight, folks. Especially on a Saturday.
What do you want about? Yes, but how much torque does it have at medium range? Does the rear suspension ensure stable turning? I'm not quite sure what you want about, Paolo.
Absolutely no idea. What language is he speaking? No, I know what suspension is, and I know what the rear is. It's a little front-wheel drive Citroen. It steers brilliantly. Just saying. Whatever those Frenchies know about automobiles, which isn't a lot, they do know about front-wheel drive and handling.
Yeah, fair enough.
To be honest, with a little two-seater car like mine, you'd be mental to put rear-wheel drive in it.
Well, both front wheel and rear wheel drive have their.
No, but it's all about like there's not much space inside the car. You're not going to put a transmission tunnel through it. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, it's red and aircon. That's all you need to know. Exactly, Paolo. Do I have to pedal it? When it broke down recently, it felt like it, but no.
Anyway, I don't really have anything more to add. So I think we can call it quits. Unless you want to add something.
Yeah, that makes sense, Paolo. If the engine's at the back, the rear wheel drive. If the engine's at the front wheel drive.
Yeah, no.
Trust me, my car's a Citroen. If you ever, and you have not yet done so, want an experience, go for a ride in a Citroen de Chauffeur. That's all I'm saying. Because that car was a work of incredible imagination.
Well, Dojavo wasn't a bad car.
No, I didn't say it was a bad car, but basic, it would be flattering it.
Oh, well, you could also go for the, what was it, the Fiat Panda?
No, but the de Chauffeur was unique. And did you know it was designed to fit a sheep in the back?
Yeah, I know. I remember the stories.
And trust me, sometimes I was that sheep.
I'll not respond.
In your neck of the woods, Ludicrous, in Northern Ireland, the DeLorean. Quite why that would be something anyone was proud of. I never could work out.
Well, the DeLorean had a pretty good acting career.
Well, yeah, it had an acting career. But then again, it was only competing with Michael J. Fox, so that's not very hard.
Yeah, most people seem to think that the DeLorean isn't that good a car.
I would say style over substance.
Yeah, well...
The gull wing being rather ostentatious under the circumstances.
Well, that was probably one of the funnier things. At the same time, I mean, yeah, considering that a lot of people park next to one another, that's a bitch to get in and out of the car.
Yeah.
Anyway. Oh, sorry. Good people, I'd like to thank you all for coming. I'm still very short of breath, I have to admit. I hope to see you all next Wednesday. And I'm not sure if John has anything that he wants to add.
No, thank you for coming and listening to us Babylon as always.
Oh. And I hope to see you all next time.